Hello, listeners. I'm your host, Jayasree, and you're listening to TALRadio, powered by Touch a Life Foundation. Welcome to Leadership for Life with Kyra Cavanaugh, President of 15B Wellbeing, a company dedicated towards creating learning experiences for leading corporations, workplaces, teams, groups, and individuals. Because they believe that no one should sacrifice well-being for performance. In today's interview, we are going to talk about regret. Okay, when you hear regret, is there anybody who says, I have no regrets? I am not sure about that. But then it is important that we let go of that regret. There's nothing wrong if we have any regret, because it happens all the time with as simple decision as I wanted to eat a pizza tonight, but then I had to eat a burger. And then the next day, you literally see somebody eating pizza, and you're like, "Oh man, I should have eaten a pizza last night." It is as simple as that. To something which is extremely complex in context to leading an organization or probably a business, things like that. So regret is inevitable. But then if you just keep holding on to it, it gets messy. So let's learn how you can let go of that regret in terms of leadership. And also, let's learn why is it extremely important for us to let go of that regret. So without any further delay, let's welcome Kyra onto our show yet again. Hello, Kyra. Thanks for being back with us.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jayasree.
Yes, wonderful. We are talking about regret.
We sure are. And like you said, I like how you opened. I mean, it's not anything that any of us are particularly necessarily proud of feeling, or sometimes regret might surprise us. It's not something we all wish for, but it's just a part of life. So I'm excited to dive into it with you today.
Perfect. Same here. So my first question, because we're talking in terms of leadership today. So how can leaders identify regrets that may be affecting their decision making? My very first question is about decision making, because the one holy job that leaders get to do with so much of burden on them. So I want to talk about that first.
Sure. So, I mean, I wonder if any of us can make a pure decision, a decision that isn't influenced by our expectations of what other people might decide, or based on past failures or desired outcomes. I mean, I think decision making can be clouded with all kinds of emotion and thought. So specifically, when we think about regret and making a decision, I would encourage you to ask yourself some questions to identify whether regret is influencing your decision making. So one would be, have I made bad decisions in the past? Here are some other ones. Have my decisions caused harm? Have they caused failure? Have my decisions hurt people? So you could ask from an objective perspective, what has been the consequence or the outcome of your decisions? Because sometimes we can carry around judgments about ourselves, but when we look at the answers to those questions objectively, you may realize, well, maybe I'm being too hard on myself. And actually, I've made very good decisions, and I haven't been able to answer Kyra's questions in any particular meaningful way. The other way you can think about regret is even before you make a decision or separate from a decision, you can ask yourself, what regrets do I have? Make a list. So we're talking in the context of leadership at work today. So make a list of the regrets you have in your career, regrets you have around decisions you've made in the past, regrets around the impact of those decisions, and just make a list of them. And maybe work on this list, adding to the list every day for a week. So you're really thinking about it and giving yourself time to process. And then look at how many regrets you actually have. If you have a long list of regrets, I would ask myself, well, why am I making decisions that cause so much regret? And do a little self-inquiry. And if you're not sure the answer, ask a manager, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a friend, to help you identify what's happening with your decision-making that's creating so much regret.
Perfect. That answers my question beautifully well. And now that we understand, how can the regrets be identified? I also want to ask you about what are some of the common regrets that leaders face in their careers?
Okay, let's all together on the count of 3 name one regret you have in your career. 1, 2, 3. We all have them, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
name yours. Everybody, name yours right now. What is it that you regret? And let's see if we can collectively gather what some of the themes are. So, one theme may be regrets around choices we have felt we needed to make that, upon further review, or we even knew at the time, were unethical or felt immoral to us. So we might have regrets around that. We might have regrets around the consequences that a decision or a choice or an action caused on our environment, on a community, on an individual and their loved ones. It could have been an impact on a client. And then what are some regrets around yourself and your own integrity? Were there times that you weren't making a decision based on what you really knew inside of you was the right decision, but for whatever reason you let outside influences shift and change your choice? So those would be 3 categories. I think there can be, as many regrets as there are people and leaders that are out there. I think it's important to recognize that regret is part of the human experience. And depending on how much you like feeling it, I, for one, don't really enjoy feeling regret, and I really try to live my life to not have a whole lot. And so that becomes a guiding principle for me. I want to make a decision that I won't have regrets for or about. And if that's the case, then let me back into making a choice, a decision, taking an action that I won't regret. And sometimes that creates guardrails and a foundation for me to act with integrity in my own career.
Got that. As you said, regret is inevitable. And to be able to manage it in some way or the other, or work around with it in a positive light, definitely, uplifts our overall well-being and our personality altogether. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And first, now the point of discussing regrets is to let go of the regret, correct? So why do you think it is extremely important for a leader specifically to let go of that regret?
Because there's nothing you can do about it. And if you're going to argue that point, then that means there is something still that you can and perhaps want to do about it. So what do I mean? A regret, the nature of the word regret is to look in the past. So in any given moment, you have a choice. You're here clearly in the present, dealing with the present. You're looking backwards, or you're looking forwards. So what happens when we concern ourselves too much with the future? We can start to get really anxious because we're thinking about things before they've even happened, and we can't control what those things are. So it generates a lot of activity without a lot of closure. Regret is the opposite of that. we can look back in judgment about ourselves. And what are you going to do about it? The past is the past. It's done. It's behind you. So the way I like to think of regret and beginning to let go of regret is to ask yourself, what does this regret want to teach me? If I'm having regret about the way I treated my employees in my last business, okay, is there an action I can take about that regret? Yes, there was an action I could take. I needed to go back and apologize to some people. I've shared some of this story in past episodes. So I did that. I used that regret as a sign that there was action I needed to take, and I took that action. So that's one thing that regret was inviting me to understand. Another is self-forgiveness. I can have regret, and I do, about the way I behaved as a leader in my last business. But if I carry that around with me, it's like a big heavy blanket that can prevent me from fully living into my potential. And then I'm not serving anybody. I'm not serving the people that I hurt in the past, and I can't do right by the people in my present and future, because you can be so loaded down. So what does that regret then tell me? What can that regret be a sign for you to do? Is to understand who you are today. That regret is a reflection of a gap between who you were and who you are or you want to be. So feel into that regret, feel into that discomfort, and talk to it, explore it like it's a new friend. And ask, who am I today that sees the gap between who I was and how I acted then and who I am now? And then set goals for yourself to become that person if you aren't fully that person yet. And celebrate this moment right now where you get to see the opportunity. That opportunity exists in the present. And we have to learn, for happiness, for full-hearted leadership, we have to learn forgiveness. So to the extent that regret is still there and you're having trouble letting it go, try filling your heart with forgiveness. Try writing about it, drawing about it, singing about it, dancing about it, acting into it. Forgive yourself. Now that's not easy. I'm not just saying, oh yeah, just go forgive yourself. It's all good. Not that at all. But this feeling of regret invites you into the possibility of self-forgiveness.
Very well, very well. It's extremely important that we understand why it is important to let go of the regret. And the way you have explained it makes a lot more sense than simply putting it in words like you said, oh, it's fine, forgive yourself or let go of it. So it's hard, it's difficult, it's not as easy as it is said. So thank you for breaking it down so simply for all of us, Kyra. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
And having understood this reason, how can a leader begin the process of letting go of past mistakes or the regrets he has?
How can they reflect on it? Give yourself some time. Give yourself some time. Let yourself fully feel it. Name it. So sometimes it's obvious regret. Sometimes the word might be nostalgia, or I'm missing something, or I feel sorry, or I wish I hadn't. Those are all expressions of regret. Feel it. Bring to your mind the image of what you did that you regret, and then expand that image to see yourself. And then send love to that self and see yourself in that whole situation, almost like you're watching yourself from afar, like a movie. Who were the people in that situation? What were they saying? How were they acting? What did it feel like to be you? What did it taste like, sound like, feel like? What did it trigger from feelings and experiences from before then? And then imagine yourself worthy of forgiveness, worthy of love, worthy of compassion. No matter what you did and no matter what you're regretting, can you send love to that person? And you can do this through this whole visualization. You could also take a different approach, which is just to sit quietly, ask yourself, what do I regret? And get in touch with, where are you holding that regret in your body? Is it in your heart? Is it in mixed up thoughts? Is it in the way you're acting, things you're doing, maybe acting out? And just spend time in connection with yourself. And then ask yourself, what do I need? What do I need to start to process this regret? It may be that you need to cry. It may be that you want to dance. You want to say you're sorry, like I did. Maybe you want to draw a beautiful picture. Maybe you want to ride a horse. Maybe you want to go sit by the beach. Maybe you want to write it down on a piece of paper and burn it and send it off with well wishes. So there are so many rituals. There are so many forms of expression. Regret is part of the human condition. So recognizing that it can come with shame, it can come with guilt, it can come with other emotions, sitting and spending time so that you fully understand the experience of regret for yourself, and then ask yourself, how could I best honor that regret to be able to start the process of healing, of grieving, of rebuilding and renewing myself? Because you deserve it. No matter what you did, you're a beautiful person worthy of love.
That takes me back to a lot of thoughts in this journey that we shared over many episodes that we spoke. The final essence of it is to accept who you are, to accept yourself, to be able to love yourself, to be able to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you may have done previously. It's important for you to correct them and make sure you do not repeat them as well. So it starts within you, right? Everything starts within you. And then it travels to the people outside or the situations outside. And I really enjoy talking to you on topics like this, Kyra, to understand how one person can live their best life. And I really love the fact that you have shared such beautiful tips with all of us that emphasize a lot more on the importance of self-love and self-care and acceptance. So thank you so much for summing that up so beautifully for all of our listeners.
You're welcome.
And thank you. And I believe the leaders who try to begin their journey of letting go of the regrets should definitely take this path that you have mentioned. And I really enjoyed listening to that. So again, we spoke about self-acceptance, love and care and stuff, but then what role do they exactly play? For example, the love or the compassion that we have for ourselves exactly play in overcoming the regret as a leader? More specifically into it.
Think of yourself as a child. Can you bring yourself back if it feels comfortable and safe? And if it doesn't, please don't take me up on this. But can you remember a time when you were a child and you made a mistake? Maybe you broke something. Maybe you were sassy and didn't listen to an adult There's so many things we do as children when we're learning. When you made that mistake, the way that adults around you reacted formed a print on you. It imprinted on you. And what happens is, as adults, as leaders, we go back to those earliest memories of how we were treated when we did something wrong, or did something wrong in the eyes of the people that were in the role of family and raising us. So for the rest of our lives, we're using that as a baseline. That's why regret and shame can have such a hold on us, because we always hold ourselves to the grandmother who was stern, or to the neighbor who wouldn't let us play with her child anymore, etc., and so on. So whether we realize it or not, we carry those things into adulthood. And for many of us, this is not a place that feels comfortable. For some of you, maybe not safe to explore. So what do? We put a fortress, we put sort of a wall around those parts, and we try to keep ourselves from them. They don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe. But what happens over time is that we act from the place not only of our lived experience or knowledge, from the current reality, but also from that walled off place. And so we're limiting all of the experiences we've had to be fully in this moment as a leader right now. So by being willing to go to that walled off place, to the place of shame, to the place of guilt, to the place of being wrong, to recognize what that has done to create an avoidance of seeing, feeling, fully embodying our mistakes, then we can't fully live. So the opportunity is to go there, but to go there in ways that are safe, to go there in little increments, to get people, professionals to help us if this is really, really difficult for us. Because what happens in the end is exactly what you were saying, Jayasree. We open ourselves up to the possibility of forgiveness. What if the stern grandmother had forgiven you? What if the neighbor who wouldn't let you play with your friend anymore had forgiven you? Some of us have examples of that in our life, and they're very freeing. Others of us don't, or we don't remember, or the difficulty has clouded over those times of compassion and forgiveness. So there's this beautiful, also difficult opportunity to explore the full breadth and depth of the human experience. It's all there. But like I said, if this is discomforting, uncomfortable, is triggering for you, I encourage you, if this is something you want to explore, to engage with a professional, coach or therapist, to be able to really help you in a safe way begin to pull apart those layers, to begin to take the bricks off the wall so that you can fully integrate the experience of regret and shame and blame into this full-bodied, full-hearted life that all of us deserve to live.
It sure rings a bell to everybody, I feel, because as you said, everybody has a regret that they may have been thinking about for many, many, many years. As you said about a neighbor, that was such a beautiful example, because most of us have childhood traumas that just sit in our head for so long. They don't really like to leave our brains and leave us alone. So things like that do need to be addressed. things like that need to be addressed, said, okay, fine, I acknowledge you, I understand you, now it's time for you to get out of my head. So,
Exactly.
so I really love the way you have given those examples and, explained it in a much deeper sense. So thank you so much on that. And once we accept or understand or try to implement few strategies to let go of our regrets, it's equally important that we simultaneously look ahead into the future too. It's not just we are sitting here dwelling into it and then just we are like, okay, fine, the time's going to be stopping here. That's not happening. It's moving on, and the future is already becoming your present and then becoming your past. So how can we focus on the future while addressing the regrets and moving past those regrets that we have? So if you can share any strategies for it.
Absolutely. Tell yourself, I am a work in progress. As a human being, I am deserving of love and kindness and respect. No matter my past choices, actions, I am a beautiful person. Listen to and practice and explore what affirming statements really resonate with you. Maybe bring a tear to your eye or really energize you to see possibility and potential in the future. And say those things to yourself every day until you don't need to hear them anymore. That's one way. Another way is to remind yourself, I am not perfect. I do not have to be perfect. That might be the saying, the affirmation that you say to yourself on a regular basis. You are a work in progress, and as a work in progress, you will make mistakes. What if I told you, I expect you to fail? I expect you to make mistakes, and I expect you to make mistakes and not have any regrets. Step boldly into the future as though the past is gone. It's not that it never happened, it's just been absorbed into who you are, like the gray hairs that start appearing on our heads. They're badges of courage and honor and recognition and growth. So the more that you remind yourself that you are worthy, that you are incredible, that you are a leader who can make choices, fail, try again, learn, succeed, it changes everything. Sometimes it's just that shift that then gives us the opportunity to come back and forgive. The more we practice leaving the regrets in the past, not letting it curtail or shadow or lessen the potential that you have in this world, the more that you practice making bold choices, bold decisions. When those are successful, now look, we're creating a new cycle, and the regrets will feel less important. You'll be more able to just accept them because you'll see the incredible reinforcement of this boldness, how you're showing up as big and wholehearted and bold and confident. That will start reinforcing to such an extent that the past will just start to fade away. Those of us who've been around on the earth for a while, we notice and trust that the things that held such a charge for us when we were younger or closer to when that thing occurred, those fade with time. And what you're left with, it's going to make me cry, is wisdom and patience and courage and acceptance. So to all of you out there listening, let go. Just let go of it. Not because it didn't matter, not because you were right, but because it's done. And take one foot forward into stepping into this amazing potential that you have. The world is waiting for you. It's ready for you. It's simply a matter of you loosening the reins on the past and stepping boldly into the future. I know that you can do it. I've done it, and it's incredible. It means that we get to lead this most amazing, bodacious life.
Very well said. Very beautifully said, I must say. And this way of explaining, I am sure, Kyra, you're the only one I think who can make us understand in such beautiful manner. I feel so glad having these conversations with you. I can't get enough of saying this on every episode, but I do say it.
I
So thank you.
value these as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much once again. It was definitely something that all of us needed to learn and all of us needed to practice every single day, not just when we are leaders, but this is in a generic manner where every single person needs to understand the importance of letting go of a regret and how it negatively impacts on our overall well-being, as you have clearly mentioned just now. So thank you so much, Kyra, once again for making this episode much more wonderful. And thank you again for your time and energy.
Thank you so much, Jayasree. Thank you, everyone.
Very well. So that was Kyra Cavanaugh for all of you today. And you're listening to TALRadio, powered by Touch a Life Foundation. This is your host, Jayasree, signing off for today. Stay tuned and keep learning.